good morning from him, and of course it's a very good morning from me. Welcome to my mortgage live stream. It's a Tuesday today, not a Monday, because yesterday was our last bank holiday until August, I think. So we have too many in this country, don't they? Although probably other countries do as well. So it's Tuesday, it's the end of May, and I got a lovely session for you today on additional security. Quite relevant, really, because a lot of lenders are now offering really high loan-to-value mortgages now. You know, there was a 100% mortgage last week that was introduced on the market, and a few more are creeping in, and they're lending more money to first-time buyers than ever before. So you'll start to see a lot more activity, and it's good. But we're going to do a little video for you on additional security because it's all about CeMAP, isn't it? Then I've got a little technique there for you on avoiding waiting room wilderness if you're on Zoom and you run meetings and stuff like that. So that's coming out later. What did we have last week which intrigued me? Well, we had the inflation figures, which were higher than was kind of expected. Although actually they were expected to go up. And of course, mortgage brokers across the land start going, oh my God, you know, chicken licking, the earth's falling in. But it's not a problem because these inflation figures were kind of expected because the water bills rocketed because they allowed the water companies to rack up the bills to pay for all these leaks. Fair enough, isn't it? And of course, council tax went up, and a few other, I think the energy cap went up as well, which affected our inflation rate. But things are moving down. I mean, petrol, fuel prices or oil prices are coming right down. You can fill up a tank of unleaded now for about 120 in the local garage. So inflation is coming down, and interest rates will trickle down a bit more as the year progresses. So things are looking good at long last, because we've been in the wilderness for 3 years since that 2022 budget, or actually it wasn't the 2022 budget that caused it, because inflation was rising way before then anyway. It was the Ukraine war and it was the COVID aftermath that caused it. But enough of these geopolitics. Let's get into our first session for you. So I'm going to pop over to the whiteboard for this one. As always, these things are designed for those people doing their CeMAPs. This goes on to the boot camp, of course, and you get to update yourself as well if you're doing CPD. So what I want to talk about then today is the topic of additional security. Now, if you're a bank or a building society or a lender and you're lending money to somebody to buy a house, then you're going to lend what they call long. In other words, you're going to lend for 25, 30 odd years. So to lend long, you need security. It's obvious. And the biggest security, of course, is the property itself. So here's the house. There you go. Wonky chimney to start with. That's your security. It's a property in the UK. It's residential mostly, but there's obviously lettings as well. And the whole point, though, is if the person doesn't make their mortgage payments, you can repossess that thing and you can sell it and pay off the mortgage. That's why we lend long at reasonably low interest rates. Now, some lending schemes rely just on the property. Of course, most residential lending will also have a client or a borrower who provides security to pay the loan. They've got their salary, etc. There's some schemes such as equity release, for example, or buy-to-let, SPVs, that sort of thing. They rely entirely on the property, either to provide a rent or to provide the money to pay back when the person dies or goes into a care home. So the property itself's got to be well looked at and well examined and surveyed, etc. So the most important additional security, or the one that's very traditional, is what's known as the higher lending charge. Now, the higher lending charge, we've got another video for this one which takes you through how that works. Principally, the higher lending charge kicks in when somebody wants to borrow more than typically 75% loan to value. So that's your mortgage on that figure. Plenty of equity to ease the problems if the house goes down in price, if it's sold forcibly. There's plenty of equity there, and the mortgage is very well secured by a property. But if you wanted to borrow more than that, of course we're doing 100% mortgages at the moment, or 95% mortgages, then you need that amount of extra borrowing to be secured by what we call the higher lending charge. Let's just put that in there for you, which again we'll talk about in more detail in another video. The high lending charge used to be called a mortgage guarantee. I don't know if you remember those words, an indemnity guarantee policy. That's how it used to be dealt with. But they don't charge these things anymore. High lending charges haven't been operating since the financial crash, but nobody wants to tell the lenders that, or CeMAP people that do the book. So that's the first major security or additional security that lenders will take. What else will they do? Well, they may take the life assurance. Let's put this down here, shall we? The life assurance policy, the life policy, which of course is on the borrower's life, not the property. Now, back in the day when we used to advise endowments, they always used to be assigned to the lender. And the lender wanted, additional security, so they would assign the endowment policy to the lender, to themselves. So if the person died, the money went straight to the lender, who would then pay off the mortgage. And they stopped assigning them in the sort of late 80s and started depositing the deeds only, or the policy document. But then they stopped doing that and couldn't be bothered to do that anymore. And now they don't bother to do any assignments or depositing of life policies. They just leave it up to the borrower to take out a life policy. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. Lenders don't seem to be too worried about that. So that's the other means of getting additional security. So what else have we got then? Well, over here we've got our lender. So let's put the lender here for you. We'll put a person in there for you. Obviously, the lender is more important than that. There you go. The lender, the bank, the building society, whoever it is, they themselves may well just swallow the extra risk. So, for example, if they're doing a 95 or 100% mortgage, so they're thinking of lending 100%, and there's a lender thinking of that, and they realise there's a danger because 100% mortgage, price of the property might come down, etc. But then they decide, well, what we'll do is we'll just put up the interest rate, and we'll create ourselves some capital reserves to pay for that. So they might actually just make the interest rate higher and put the extra profit into capital reserves, which can be used to pay off any debts they might have by selling these properties when people are repossessed. And that's what they've done in the last 10, 15 years. High loan-to-value mortgages, your high loan-to-value LTVs, have always equaled high percentages. And that's the case now. And 100% mortgage is going to be even higher than a 50% mortgage. So that's how they tend to work now. They tend to make their own money, make some profits, put it in reserves, and they use that to compensate themselves. Okay, makes sense. No. So what else has been going on then? A few other things happened. The government, the UK government, introduced their own scheme, a higher lending charge scheme of their own, which has been tapped into a little bit. The whole point about the government scheme is that the government were going to guarantee this extra lending. So rather than a high lending charge or high interest rate, the lender can tap into the government scheme, pay them a few quid, and the government will supply a guarantee. So the high lending charge scheme there from the government, which hasn't really been that popular. I think it's still around actually as well, but doesn't seem to have done a lot of good. Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, what else can you do? Well, you can opt for a guarantor. That's a lovely one. Now, the guarantor is usually a family member. So let's just put dad in there, or mum. Yeah, there's a bit of hair at the top there. Who comes in as a guarantor to provide their salary or their ability to pay. They put their salary on the block, if you like. So not only have you got this young couple or person buying the property in their own name, they will have a guarantor, and they put their salary into it, and this guarantor signs the mortgage deed and commits to making the mortgage payments if this person doesn't do so. So that's a really good way of operating as far as lenders are concerned. Now, guarantors provide their salary or their ability to pay the mortgage, but some guarantors offer what they call a surety. Let's just put that in there for you. Now, a surety is some form of value, some form of collateral that they provide. Very rare these days. But back years ago when I was working in the building society business in the 1980s, 83 this was, I remember distinctly, a young couple came in to see me for a mortgage. They couldn't... I wasn't able to lend them how much they needed. So I said, look, do you have a guarantor, And the lady said, yeah, I can always speak to my dad. So she went off. Anyway, the dad came in the following day and said, can I speak to Paul Archer? I said, it's me. He said, yeah, my daughter's come for me to be a guarantor. Not sure about that, he said to me, because I want two of them to stand on their own feet, their own 2 feet. I said, that's a great idea. So I said, well, the other thing I said is you can give us a surety, He said, yeah, I can do that. So he went next door to the Gateway Building Society, withdrew 30 grand and put it in one of our savings accounts at the Building Society. We put a lien on that so he couldn't withdraw the money. It was his money, but he couldn't withdraw it. He could earn interest, of course. And we put a lien on it, which meant that if the couple didn't make their mortgage payment, we could dip into that account to pay it. And that was what was known as a surety. And the young couple didn't know about it. So they thought they were doing it themselves, but we had security, so it worked out quite well. So not only did I lend a mortgage, I actually got a 30,000 savings as part of my target as well, a long time ago. But it shows you how this all works, doesn't it? So quite a lot of extra security that the lender has available to them. Which one do they tend to use most these days? Well, quite simply, what they're doing now is they're just charging a high rate of interest. They're lending 100%. They're being careful on the property that they're lending on as well. So obviously doing proper surveys, etc. on the property. They might be a bit finicky about high-rise flats, that sort of thing. But they're building up capital reserves through charging a higher rate of interest. Some might be tapping into the government's high lending charge scheme, but many aren't doing that so much these days. The argument is you get a good couple here, or one person or two people who have been paying rent. So previously these people would have been tenants, typically, and they can show or demonstrate how much rent they've been paying. So they can demonstrate to the lender they've been paying, £1,500 rent, and therefore they can pay the mortgage as long as they keep an employment. Mostly these people tend to be employed rather than self-employed. They can make the mortgage payments, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. It just gives you some of the ideas of all the different security that they have into account. Hope that's been useful. Bye. Great. Okay. A nice little update there for you on the additional security. And next week we'll do one on higher lending charges. We'll do some calculations and stuff for you, because the exam still does have the old mortgage indemnity guarantee policies where the private sector used to provide a guarantee to lenders, and lenders used to pay for it, and then the borrower had to pay back the lender. Old-fashioned way of operating, but it's still in the syllabus, isn't it? You still need to know about these things. So we'll do that next week. Hope you're well. Hope all is tickety-boo with you, and the world is treating you well, and you're getting busy and doing the right thing. Lots of things happening here. Of course, we've got some public courses coming up in the autumn. We've got some equity release, and we've got presentation skills as well. The equity release will be an interesting one for you. It's a one-day course we're running in September, I think it is, open to anybody and come along to it. We'll teach you how to pass the equity release exam in one day. So that's coming up. Keep in touch with us if you're interested in that one. But what I want to do now is give you a little sales tip, if you like. But this sales tip is for anybody that operates with Zoom or Teams. Maybe you're operating a team and you've got a team meeting coming up, or you've got a few clients coming in for a seminar or something. And this one's called Avoiding Waiting Room Wilderness. I like that title, don't you? Now, I recently had my first in-person GP visit, first one since 2016. I mean, back then when I went, it was all rickety chairs in the waiting room, a dusty leaflets, a stern receptionist who was barking out the orders, usually late as well. But when you fast forward to 2025, it's a very different scene. When you go in now, you've got a touch screen check-in, a waiting time countdown on the screen, videos to keep you entertained on the big screens, posters with useful information, and a doctor who comes out personally to greet you and welcome you. It's a better experience all round. So why then do we still leave people in the Zoom or the Teams waiting room with nothing? Here's how you can improve it. Here's a few ideas for you. Why not add a short looping welcome video onto the Zoom waiting room, where people can watch the video whilst they're waiting? Zoom makes it very easy to record one. Or you could use the chat facility to talk to the people in the waiting room. This is a great feature that lets you share what's going on or what to expect or when you're starting. Perhaps offer tips to get most out of the session, or a link to helpful resources while they're waiting. You could include a countdown timer if you can, to give them an idea when it's starting. And when you do open the room, open it 5 or 10 minutes early, but only if 2 or more people are waiting. When you get one-on-one early arrivals, it can feel very awkward trying to make conversation with one person. Once people start arriving, then bring them into the conversation naturally. So, hi Rob, welcome. We were just chatting about the storm last night. Did you experience it? There's some ideas for you to help you make the waiting room experience a little more conducive. Otherwise, you might get memories of British Rail waiting rooms flooding back from the 1980s. And that's not a nice scene, I can assure you. Great. There we go. That was a little technique for you, a little tip for you to help you with waiting rooms if you're operating on Teams and Zoom and those sort of things as well, which you may well be doing. And we're going to wrap up. So a nice little short and sharp live stream this week on a Tuesday, of course. Next week we're on a Monday because it's back to normal. As always, if you're keen to get onto our member list, we talk about this every week, don't we? Here's our member list for you. You can go on there and you can scan that QR code and come onto our waiting list. We've got some special offers this week, actually. We've got some special offers on CeMAP revision guides. We've got quite a bit in stock, you see, so we're giving them out free. That's free, a book worth 39 quid when you're buying a podcast. So if you want to find out about that, you have to go onto the member list because we only give these offers to people on our database, on our membership. So that's the right thing to do, isn't it? So get on there and keep in touch with us. Other than that, I'm going to wish you a fantastic week, really, because it's raining and it's half term. You may well be on holiday. So have fun, everybody, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.